from what I read, the label gave you $135,000 to
Who
do the
told you
second
that?
album.
Who told you that?
It was in Wikipedia.
Oh, okay. Damn. It's crazy. Yeah, we got $135,000.
Okay. And then you guys built your own studio.
Yeah, because we didn't have money, so we didn't have money to go and get producers at that time. We only got two producers, outside producers, that could fit within our budget cap. Obviously, we went and got Salam, because Salam was the one who did the remix for Nappy Heads, Mona Lisa record. So we wanted to still capture that, to be consistent and still get some of that magic, which he ended up giving us a fucking incredible record, Fugees. And then Diamond D, he was a hot producer at that time, but more like some hip hop type of vibe, like a Premier type of producer. He gave us a record, but we had to build a studio and make our own album, because $135,000 even back then wasn't a lot of money, you know. And we just built the studio and basically produced our whole album, except for 2 songs.
Right. That was the Booger Basement.
Booger Basement, yeah.
Okay. So you guys put together the score.
Right.
When the album was finished, how did you feel about it?
That was the first time I had a euphoric moment. I went and listened to the album. It was completed right before we mastered it. I sat in the studio and I listened it 3 times by myself all the way through. And I cried. Because I was like, God is so good, because I knew this album was going to make a mark. Just felt it. I felt it. I felt it in my bones. I had to cry because we put so much work, you know. And by the way, and a lot of people don't know, but in the first album, you know, the hip hop community, the critics. What was interesting, it was somewhat critically acclaimed, but at the same time, you know, we were getting killed. You know, they were like, yo, send them 2 Haitians back to Haiti. You know, they need to go back on their boat, you know. For us to finish the album, you know, it was that relief. Like, man, we just won the championship. You know, it was, because, you know, your whole thing, man, you put your whole heart and soul into something. You know, you sacrifice a lot. I gave up going to school. I ran away from home. My parents had moved to Florida 2 years before that, before I graduated from high school. And, you know, I went out on a limb, man, to do the first album. I was basically homeless. I was just living in a Booger Basement, crashing over here. And my whole life wasn't that. I grew up in a world where my parents were not rich, but I was comfortable. I got everything I wanted as long as I brought it in a certain GPA, all the fly shit at the time, you know, whether it be the first, you know, whatever that everybody, like today, if it's like the first iPad, you know, whatever. My mom was like, whatever you want, I'm going to get to you as long as you bring in the grades. And then I go sacrifice that first album. We sell like, by that time, we had sold maybe like 200 copies at that time, you know, by the time the score's about to come out. And then to hear what we did, you know, it just felt like, I can't explain that feeling, man. It was the beginning of a lot of great feelings from that point on.
That's just so crazy to think that your second album is coming out and you've only sold 200 copies of your first album.
At that time, Cypress Hill is selling 40,000 a week. See what I'm saying? Like, we sold nothing.
They're on the same label as you. They're on Rough House.
Yeah, Rough House, yeah.
Okay, so like the second album, what is really like the chemistry between the 3 of you in terms of who does what? I mean, you know, is Wyclef doing most of the production now, and you know, Lauren is doing most of the singing, you're doing the rapping? Like, how does it fit together?
Everybody plays a role, you know, but we will, to put it best to you, you know how like in a basketball team, you got that one guy, his whole thing is 3-pointers, right? Then you got the one guy, he gets inside the paint. He just goes straight to the paint, right? And you got that one guy who just rebound. But every once in a while, we'll interchange. But everybody had their specialties. Like the Avengers. Like, you know, Iron Man does his thing, but Captain America might come in and help him out. Yeah, you know, and vice versa. So everyone had their roles. And the chemistry was great at that time.
Well, I remember when that album dropped, and like every house party you would go to, how many mics would be playing? That was like the way that album. I mean, you had the intro, but then that was like the first song, right?
Right.
And I remember like how many mics came out, and it was like, this sounds like the next shit, right here, like just sonically, lyrically, the whole thing. It just sounded like the next shit, and in Fugees, that was the first single, right?
Right.
Once again, it sounded like the next shit. It sounded different. Like just the way the music was layered and the way it came together was like, okay, this sounds like nothing that's out in music right now. And the album dropped, and did it start to sell like crazy?
Interesting. So, record company come to us and said, listen, you guys gonna have a nice week, but you're gonna get that hip hop drop, that famous hip hop drop. Come out strong, then you dip. So I remember saying to, I don't know who it was at the label, I said to them, I don't know, man, I don't think we're gonna do the hip hop drop. They're like, Pras, been doing this for eons, I promise you. But it's fine, because you guys definitely probably gonna have a gold album. Because the single was already gold, Fugees. And it could have went platinum, but they capped it because they wanted people to go buy the album. Right? So they didn't prevent it from going platinum. So I said, I don't know, man. This you know how this in anyone who's a hip hop head, like I'm hip hop from when it first started to now. And I know when there's moments, when you hear something, you feel like, man, this is going to be like, I remember when I first heard Biggie. Right? So when I first heard Biggie, we were in transition between the first and the second album, right? Because I used to do shows with Biggie and Puff and all that. So, and I remember when I first heard, who the fuck is this? So I remember hearing that, and I'm like, whoa, like you just felt like this is going to be something. You get those moments. So, and I can go back. I remember when Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh dropped Lottie Dottie. It was like, whoa, this is going to be, so I know what those feelings are. So when that moment was coming, you could feel it, man. It's like anything, man. Even today, man, there's certain things that in the last 3-4 years that came up in our radar that's like, man, this feels, wow, you felt like this going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, remember when 50 dropped, when he first dropped his first album in the club, you knew it was going to be like, whoa, this is going to be special. It's just moments in certain records and culturally, so that's how I feel things. The second week, it goes from 70,000 to 90. Record company's like, whoa, okay. Third week, it goes from 90 to 98. It just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And at that time, Alanis Morissette had that record. Isn't it ironic? It's called Little Jagged Pill, whatever the album's called. Huge, massive album. She was selling 300,000 records a week for like 30 weeks. And that's the record that's the album we had to go beat to get #1 on Billboard. We eventually did, especially when Killing Me Softly got leaked. Some radio station start playing it. It was done. It was a wrap. We didn't even want to release that record. It just came out. It was like, okay, it's a gift from heaven.
So the album goes 6 times platinum?
It goes at that. You mean worldwide or just in the States?
Well, in the States first.
States, there, 7 time platinum.
7 times platinum in the States. Worldwide, how much?
22 million.
22 million albums.
Yeah.
So you guys grossed $300 million off that album.
That's
a
the math,
third of
man.
a billion.
Math don't lie.
Right? 22 million
Arithmetic's not an
times
opinion.
$15 an album, that's
Yeah.
about a third of $1 million. A third of $1 billion.
Yeah.
Double diamond. How did you guys feel to do that? You guys blew past everybody at that point.
To be honest with you, when you're in that whirlwind, you don't really understand what's happening until you take a step back. And at that time, it was going so fast that we weren't even paying attention to it.
Okay. But the success is through the roof.
It is, but you don't understand it. Especially at that time. You gotta remember, we're in a different time now. In this era, everything is amplified. Everything's exaggerated. At that time, we didn't have any social media. We didn't have any of that. So it just felt regular. It was just like, oh, okay. We hot all around the planet, and we're going all around the planet. Japan, here, Germany, Europe, all over. It's just felt like, oh, once you become successful, that is what's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm.
Now, at this point, was the business 100% with the record label? Because, with new artists, a lot of times the deals favor the label. How is it with you guys by the time the second album rolls around?
I gotta be honest with you, the deal was pretty fair, if not better than average. And I think that's because we had a couple things going for ourselves. One, at that time I was like the businessman in the group, so I was very into trying to make sure, we don't get played at that time, so I was always looking and seeing. But I think what the smartest thing first of all, we had a great manager, and then we had great lawyers. But the smartest thing we ever did was the advance we took was so minimal. I mean, on the second album, just to give you perspective, out of the $135,000, the three of us only walked away with $1,200 each. It's nothing, right? So because the album only cost $135,000, you figure the first album, they probably spent maybe $300,000, including the videos. So now, by the time they go to release this album, maybe they up at $1 million, but then by the third month, we're already at like 2 million albums. And worldwide, we at like 6. So they made all their money because the upfront money was so low, so the return was great. And I learned from that. Like, I don't even like taking advances from anything. My thing is, let me succeed because you make more money like that. But a lot of artists, they want that upfront money because they figure like record companies fucking them over anyway, so I might just get everything I can up front, which is true to a certain extent. But now you got to say to yourself, are you betting on yourself? And if you bet on yourself, then, you'll be like, I don't want that advance. Because you got to pay that advance back. Plus, their accounting is very trickery. They give you $1, it's like they gave you 5. right? So,
Yeah.
and who you gonna get to audit it? I mean, people don't even know. Artists don't even know to go get someone to audit the label. That's yeah.
Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah.
It's definitely deep.
Gucci's absolutely the boogeyman of hip hop. Like, it's just certain individuals you just know that at any given moment it could go left.
Right.
Gucci's one of them. T.I.'s one of them. I told y'all that before. I don't know why y'all keep acting like T.I. ain't Gucci level crazy. Maybe
T.I. is Gucci level crazy.
Gucci might be T.I. level crazy.
You mean to tell me that if I walked up to your mother right in front of you and shot her in the face,
Yeah.
and then I left the country and you can't get to me, you wouldn't tell the police?
Hell no, where your mama stay at?